Sounds of Hell. This is a story about 20 years ago when I was working at a recording studio in Tokyo. I worked there part-time, but I devoted myself to assisting a senior engineer for about 4 years, and when I had learned all the work, the senior engineer asked me if I was ready to become a full-time employee. To work as a full-time employee, I had to be able to handle all recording tasks by myself. Starting from the meeting with the band, to setting up, recording, and track down, final adjustment of the sound, I would be on my own. In order to judge my ability, I have to do some trial recordings, but as I am only half a professional, I cannot be in charge of recording for a famous and talented band. I am not going to be in charge of recording a famous and talented band, so I will be in charge of an amateur band that is not as high level as possible. One such band that booked us was an amateur band of 3 college students. It was their first recording session, and they wanted to record 2 songs in a short amount of time and as cheaply as possible. I don't like to put it this way, but from a studio point of view, it was a band that could afford to make mistakes. I was put in charge. We decided to record the song in 2 days, including track down. On the day of the recording, after a light meeting, we set up the drums and bass and began recording. The recording went smoothly, with the college students performing well. It was while we were recording the guitar. The guitar player stopped while he was playing and said, "Did you hear a woman's voice just now?" I was surprised and asked, "Did you hear a woman's voice just now?" In recording, we generally don't talk to the people who are playing during the performance. Also, the voices in the mixing room, where I, the engineer, and the other members of the team are waiting, do not reach the headphones of the person who is playing unless he or she speaks while pressing the button on his or her hand. Of course, no one is talking to anyone at this time. The guitarist is also playing in a small room called a booth, which is closed by a thick door, so no outside voices can enter. I actually checked the recorded sound, and there was no particular voice-like sound in it, so I said, "It's just my imagination, isn't it?" and proceeded with the recording. In fact, some guitar effects and playing techniques can actually sound like a human voice, so I was not concerned at all. After that, the guitar player said several times, "I feel like I heard a voice." But I and the other members let it slide, thinking it was just my imagination. Despite all this, the guitar recording was successfully completed. The only thing left was to record the main vocals by the guitarist and the chorus by the other members, but here a problem occurred. Normally, vocalists do not often record a song over a different day in order to avoid voice changes in the middle of a song, but when the first vocalist who did not sing well, time ran out and it was time for the members to catch the last train. However, there is only 1 day left tomorrow, including track down. So I made a suggestion to the members. Fortunately, we have recorded the vocals several times. I would take the best of the recordings, put them together, and correct any out-of-tune parts by tomorrow, so why don't we start recording the vocals for the second song tomorrow? The recording engineer was mostly Pro Tools. Most recording engineers use a tool called Pro Tools, which allows them to make all kinds of corrections, not to mention pitch and rhythm deviations. The band members looked a little frustrated, but reluctantly agreed, perhaps because they knew they would have to pay extra again if they did not finish in 1 more day. I sent the band members off and began my all-night work. I lit up a cigarette and began correcting the vocalist's voice, thinking that if I could get it done in about 3 hours, I could get about 5 hours of sleep. The work went smoother than I had expected, and when I had finished about half of the song, I decided to take a break and clean up the studio a little. I was cleaning up the cables in the booth and vacuuming when I heard a woman's voice over the noise of the vacuum cleaner. I thought I heard a woman scream over the noise of the vacuum cleaner. I immediately stopped the vacuum cleaner. The studio, with no outside noise coming in, is filled with a silence that hurts my ears. I waited quietly for a while but did not hear the woman's voice. Was it my imagination or was I working too hard? I was about to leave the booth and return to the mixing room when suddenly the song I had recorded today started playing loudly. It's buggy, I thought. Even though the sound was set to only play through the headphones, the main big speakers were blasting out the song. All the recorded sound data is stored on the HDD. Although I save the data as I work, it would be a disaster if the data were to be lost. I rushed to my computer and hit the stop button. The song does not stop. The song by the college students that I have heard over and over again today keeps playing. I hit the stop button repeatedly, but the song does not stop. In fact, the PC no longer accepts any operations. I thought about turning off the power for a moment, but I couldn't do it, considering the risk of losing the data. While I was doing so, I started to hear noises in the songs. As I was doing this, I started to hear noises in the song. I hear a sound like hammering metal that does not resemble a fresh tune. I might have finally broken down in earnest. I started to think about giving up on the whole thing and turning off the power. A woman's screams hit me over and over again as I freeze. The speakers are making a crunching, cracking sound. The terror did not end there. The cries of many children, the earth-shaking voices of many adults. As I stood there, I imagined people fleeing from some tremendous disaster. Now that I think about it, I feel that if I put a microphone in hell, I would be able to record such a sound. How long had it been? I guess not more than 2 minutes passed, and gradually the voices of the people who had been screaming in despair became quieter and quieter, and the song returned to its original fresh college student tune. This time the song stopped normally with the stop button. Stunned, I just pressed the save button and left the studio to rest in the break room of the office for the time being. There was a senior engineer in the break room who was also working overnight. As soon as he saw me, he said, "Did you skip some data?" I looked quite pale. I told him about the sound of my voice that I had heard earlier. My senior said, "There is no particular story about this studio, but for some reason, there are many ghost stories not only about this studio but also about other recording studios." Indeed, I had heard rumors of ghost stories about a famous studio in Alma. After that, I asked my senior staff to accompany me to the studio, and we managed to do the minimum amount of work and greeted the morning. Even though I heard so many demons, there was nothing wrong with the sound source, and we were able to finish the second day of recording without any problems. Now that I think about it, on the first day the guitar player said, "Didn't you just hear a woman's voice?" I think now that something may have started to transfer to the sound source on the first day when the guitarist said, "Did you hear a woman's voice just now?" In the end, the truth is unknown, but I realize that this kind of phenomenon happens regardless of whether there is a reason for it or not. It may sound like a gag if I reproduce it in words, but it was a truly horrifying scream. It was the first and last time I had such an experience, but in the end, I overworked myself by staying up all night every day, and before I could become a full-time employee, I broke down and quit my job, returning to the countryside and now working in the construction industry. I am now back in the countryside working in the construction industry. This is the end of this story. Thank you for listening to the end.